and welcome to the Upper Deck by Pinstripe Chronicles. I'm Lynn. That is not Chris. Um, Chris is away on assignment, and so joining me is the founder of Pinstripe Chronicles himself, Uncle Tats. What's going on, Tats?
Good morning, Lynn. Glad I'm able to come on and spend a little bit of my Sunday with you guys on camera and not just in the chat. So I'm just looking forward to kind of spending time with everybody. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, and I'm just a little bit concerned, Tats, that we're going to have nothing to talk about at all. I really hope that we're not boring and just like stretching time here. Hey, welcome, Four Train and Lori. Great to see you. Thanks for joining us. And I'm sure other friends. And there, right on cue, is FJ. Thanks. What's going on, everybody? Well, so I don't know whether to sing a song like from Les Miserables for like all the fallen and injured that we continue to see, or some sort of lament about what the hell's going on with this team overall. So let's just kick it off with the obvious, because why not join the universe and the solar system and say the words judge and hip? Tat, so what's your take? We now have a diagnosis,
Yep.
but they haven't put him on the IL. What's your take there?
Well, my take is I think after you saw that slide, right, and I believe the idea first went into my head that this move should have been made. Is I was listening to the fan on Chris McMonagle's show, so I'll give him credit for putting this thought together for me. But he had made the comment, and I agree with 100%. That next game when he woke up and he said he felt a little, something. He should have sat that game. They should not have put him in for those two at bats that he was able to go into, and then come out. They should have just given him the day off. You can't play games with this guy. He is your franchise right now. Okay, that's where the Yankees made the mistake of by forcing him into that next lineup, because to be honest, they really had no option. But the option they could have had was sacrifice one game and just let him get a full day rest after that slide.
So let me just toss out there, though. Do you think that it's in Judge's makeup not to admit to it?
No, I think he admitted right away. I think he was being honest with them right away.
That makes it badder.
Yeah. And he was like, "Look, I have this, little twinge." He goes, "I can play through it." But the Yankees at that point should have said, "You know what? We're already down Donaldson. We're already down Stanton. We can't lose another big bat in the lineup." So we're still waiting on Bader. So we don't know. We're still waiting for Cabrera to break through, because he's starting to really show some struggle. Volpe's been coming out of it. He's been playing really well. Rizzo's been. We all know Rizzo in the beginning of the year is always on fire. He always starts off strong. You can't. You completely dismantled your lineup because of one person.
Even Rizzo, though, hasn't shown up the past few games, and so it sounds like the opposite is true. They said you have to play because we don't have Gio, because Stanton, we don't have Bader, we don't have, so you have to push through. And so and that's just classic. And look what they get now, potentially. And my worry is that this is going to be something that henceforth with him as he gets older, a chronic thing. Yep. Because once you get an injury, yes, it might be mild now because it's a first hit, but bones don't bounce back after a certain length of time and age and what you do to your body on the regular, the way Judge has to. So I'm concerned that now with this diagnosis that he's going to be out for a bit. But then if they put him on the IL, who the heck do we have left to bring up? Um, I don't want to, and I know that I'm not going to get what I want. I don't want to see franchise come back up, but I know he's coming back up because of Bauer now, and so um, and that's the other thing. Let's talk about Bauer for a second.
Oh well, let's because Rob and I were saying in our show on Friday that Bauer should be getting called up. And it was also
So it's your fault,
he was brought up a lot in chat, and we were like, that is the move because we said that. My question was, why was he being put on the taxi squad? If you're gonna have him up, use him. Figure out a way to make the moves to get him activated. Don't wait to see what's going on with Judge. So they finally they finally listened to the fans and they listened to us and they put him in the game, and it was a phenomenal play. That was an outfield play that we've been waiting for an outfielder to actually put the effort in to make, and then he's right out of the game, and it's like really,
right? Right. So
it's like you finally get that package that you've been waiting for this gift, and it's broken.
right, like we can't have nice things ever,
No.
and so it and in one flash, I saw Booney go from this to running out to because and I think that had to have been all of our reactions because they're like holy, and that's what I was starting to type in my tweet, holy Bowers, and then I paused and said, oh, I hope you're okay. Because yes, play. Um, but then at the same time, I'm like, but why did you? Did you have to? But of course he had to. Of course we would have been mad if he didn't. And just I was concerned about a head injury, um,
Yeah, that's what I
because
thought too.
depending on the angle of the replay you saw, there was a subsequent holy crap because I
Well,
saw
because
it from a different angle. But and if you saw the post game interview in the locker room, then you know that he's saying it's just swollen. Please don't ask me for the 20th time if I'm feeling pain. He handled that well. But now we don't have him, and for how
no, and you
long?
know what? I'm going to say it's partly our fault. When you get some plays like that, because of the way that I think we kind of jinxed the outfield. Because the ones that we've wanted to play, we've put so much pressure on to do everything right that if he would have noticed if he one, I don't think he realized how close he was to the wall because he didn't have his hand out
Right.
to feel for the wall. So that was his first mistake when you really look back and analyze the
True.
play.
True.
All right. If he would have stopped to play it off the wall, we would have been screaming, "Come on, you could have made that."
Exactly.
Now that he got hurt, we're going, "Yeah, you should. You didn't have to run into the wall. Just play it off the hop. It's the first inning." So it's we put ourselves in these predicaments where no matter what the outcome, we're always going to be pissed off at something.
That's right. And so they really can't win.
No.
There's very few Yankees that can win, and maybe just one, and it's Judge. And even right now, we're we're not happy. And yeah, so in the chat, I'm seeing FG Jay saying we have no depth on the bench. This season already is a riches to rags story
Yeah.
all across the team. It's supposed to be rags to riches. It's the total opposite. And now we are like we're in a zone of despair, and Lori's saying that I'm concerned that what you see is what you get, a fourth place team.
Yeah.
And yeah, time stamping today, that's the right thing to think and feel. I just hope we're not saying that a couple of months from now. And last year we had our pit of despair was right after the All-Star break, and I'm praying that this is it. This is our time of despair, and it goes up from here. But we just don't know, and that's baseball, Susan, right? So um, is it premature to say that we'll be fighting for the last wild card spot? Um,
With this roster, yeah, I think we'll
if,
be
if
lucky to make the
all things
playoffs.
equal, if this is going to be the theme of the season, and now Judge is going to be spotty in and out. We don't know when Stanton's going to be unbubble wrapped and brought back in, but we know he'll be put back in rubble bubble wrap multiple times. Um, and yeah, for train, we're never happy. You're right, because even when things are going well, there's always something to complain about. Um, and here's our friend Li. Hey, Li, didn't see you come in. Um, so yeah, he gave us depth, and I know you mean that. Thank you sincerely, Li. It's dripping text here. Um, but remember how good we felt. I think globally across Twitter, of course, there's always those shoulda, coulda, wouldas, and why didn't they's that we have, and rightly so in a lot of the cases. But we were excited when spring training came with who they had invited in, with who we already had, um, and even Cashman, doesn't isn't Dionne Warwick in the Psychic Friends Network. He makes his calculated risks. Unfortunately, they all tend to suck. And so Montas being the most glaring example, but who we were all excited for Rodon. Um, no one could have predicted. I think that we are where we are with him.
No, and that's the unfortunate part of it because it's baseball is unpredictable to begin with. You know, you wouldn't think that the some teams like look at the what is it the Pirates have won like what 9, 10 in a row. Nobody had that on their bingo card. You can't. Baseball is so unpredictable that you always have to expect the unexpected.
Right.
And when you get the phenomenal part of the game, it's just that much more highlighted. Like
Right.
nobody saw the season that Judge was going to have last year with the 62 home runs.
Yeah.
But as we started to see it build, now you have the exciting part of the game you love. And then when you see but to the chat's point, it's it's constantly going like who's the backup because we all know that somebody's going to get hurt. And yet injuries happen throughout the league. But we win the World Series in injuries every year, and that trend has got to stop. But and there's really no way to fix that.
No, and even trying to fix it with younger blood isn't the total panacea either.
Yeah, look
Uh,
at last night.
yeah, I
They
mean
brought more youth up, and that guy made it. He didn't even make it through an
that,
inning.
that's right. And even though Bauer Volpe is like a rare youth example, Volpe has some experience under his belt, and the same thing, and yeah, I know for train that we were excited. I remember the excitement with Volpe, and I think what's lying beneath what you're saying is that we're not feeling the same excitement about him. And I would counter that with, yes, I am. Yes, I am. So I'm not looking at his batting average. I'm looking at the big picture. And yeah, he has not produced this series in the way that we want him totally. But he is heads up in the field and turning plays that some others would not have that had been in that position before. So I think I remain excited and optimistic. And the other thing that Fortrain had said was, you can't. I forget the words now. I have to go back up to it because
Yeah,
Cat
you can't win
can't
the
win a
division, but you
division
can
in
lose.
April, but you can lose one. I'm surmising that what he's meaning there is, once we lose this ground, you know, this could be the way. And yeah, we've seen that more times than we could count. If you're as old as me, you saw it for consecutive years and almost entire decade. Absolutely, and I just hope that's not what we're heading for. We all hope that. Um,
No,
Go ahead.
they really Cashman needs to start to really get creative in a way that we have not seen in a while. And I'm gonna hate saying this, but you know, Li is kind of Cashman has not done the job right. Am I saying look, he has made one thing that you have to give credit to Cashman. Okay, when there is a well, let's ignore the left field this year. All right, but I would say 98% of the time when there is a need, Cashman will figure out a way to get somebody for that spot. It may not be the top A+ player, but he'll find somebody serviceable to get into that spot while they try to figure out the long term solution. Because the long term solution is not always going to come right away. So, we didn't know what was going to happen you know, with some of these kids coming up. How are they going to handle the game? How are they going to handle the pressure of New York? And that's the other thing. Players are coming with their skill set, and they've been able to be productive players on other teams. And then they come to New York and they suck. But we put a lot of pressure on these players. They're not playing just to win the game. They're trying to also win over millions of fans. That the slightest bit of you when you make a mistake, we're going to torture you to no end until you correct it, and we do not let up. So we need to get some maybe depending on the player, because we all know that there's one player that will never be let up on.
Oh, we'll talk about that
And we're
player.
gonna get. That's why I'm kind of transitioning into that. We need to be a little patient sometimes. We need to learn some patience.
And and I'm gonna tag you, tag what you were saying about how much pressure we put on guys coming in. We just saw the two examples of that during the Twin series, where you know Urshela was the early on Urshela we had.
Yep.
We saw Joey Gallo and what he's doing. Um, your face changed. Am I doing a Lynn thing with that, Tats?
Nope.
No, it's Twins series, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this week was such a mind meld for me that I could be even, glad you're here to monitor that because you know the week I had. Everything's good, guys. We all have those weeks. Um, Joey Gallo and what he's bringing to the plate. I mean, he's always had it in the field. That's never been our gripe. But look at him flourishing, and look at his stats. And it can't be an aberration that just didn't happen in New York. It was entirely about New York.
No, New York is the hardest place to play a sport. And not just in the Bronx, in Queens. At Madison Square Garden with the Rangers and the Knicks. The Nets, the Island. There is such a level of expectation in New York to be perfect. That perfection is so hard to reach that no matter how good you think it is, there's always going to be that one thing that could be critiqued.
Right.
And that's where sometimes we overanalyze our expectations. And yes, the expectations, yeah, we want to get to a World Series. We want to end this drought. You know, it, if they're going to rely on the kids this year and we don't make the playoffs, but that seasoning prepares them for next year, wouldn't that be better than to have, every position have a future Hall of Famer where it's a one and done fizzle out because they're aged out.
You know, I think that um, I think what you're saying is wise, but if we,
Not smart.
it's like no, wise and smart are synonyms. I think that the practicality though is that how often have we tried to do that and failed? And we're in this situation where as much pressure and high demand as there always has been with this franchise, and as Fortrain saying here with new, with you know what we do is insanity. And sometimes the players that don't want to come to us are the ones we want don't want to come to us, because it's better to be a big fish in a little pond than going to a place where everybody's expected to be a big fish in the pond. And that expectation is clear, and no one makes it more clear than the fans do. So, and case in point, Joey Gallo, he's shining because he's a big fish in a smaller pond. And so I think you're absolutely right, because that's my philosophy too, Tats, that, we have to have the patience to groom, and that's why we rely on the lower leagues to do that. But what we can't change is what happens when they get up here. So even when we start, from the beginning in single A, then and on up, some have not been able to handle it. And so how do we figure that out sooner? It is part of it, I think. But and yeah, Lori, 100% World Series or bust. And um, should
No,
should that really be it? Should that? I mean, it is the standard, and the loyals, um, and what people would say the real fans. That's the standard. But for the sake of our sanity, do we need to adjust that a little bit?
it's hard. And when you set a standard, you want to you never want to have to lower that. You always want to keep pushing that bar forward, right? It's like when I started, Pinstripe Chronicles, and we all, we all teamed up and said, here we go. It was our expectation was to try to gain as many subscribers to the channel as possible. And then, 2 years ago, even last year, there was this pivot where it's like, okay, was focusing, don't focus too much on the future, embrace the now. So we started changing the format where we started doing the shows live. Let's give something to the people that have been with us. So the Yankees sometimes, I think they're so stuck in this bubble, or with the fans, that we're so worried about winning that World Series that there are a handful of players we get so overcritical of. We're not enjoying the games that they are giving us. And it's okay, yeah, that was great, but you better do that tomorrow. Rather than just kind of enjoying it until the start of the next day.
Right, 100%. And that's why you're Uncle Tats, because you spit the truth. And that makes total sense. Um, so I wanna talk about Hicks and IKF and that moment.
Well,
We all know the moment, don't we? The play.
well, there were two that stood out. It was the with Hicks and Volpe, and then Hicks and IKF. And doesn't it strike you? Isn't it funny now how every time that there's a play in the outfield, or any time that Hicks is involved, it's always so close to a disaster. And Hicks should know better as the season guy, not just because he's the season guy. He should be running around, all over trying to make every play. One that's not going to win us over. All right, we've already given up on you. Okay, it's just a joke at this point. And yeah, Lori, it's a circus act.
Right.
Nick should have never gone for that ball with IKF. IKF had that all away. Right. Hicks is sprinting, for 2 miles trying to get the ball that Volpe was already underneath. So Hicks needs to do better. I know you want to make the play, Hicks. I know. But you know what? We don't even want you involved in anything because everything you touch is a disaster.
Yeah, and what he's not showing is what it means to be a team player, because at the moment he's all about proving himself in the few opportunities he's been getting lately to say, hey, here's why you got to play me, and it's having the opposite effect. And so instead of playing the way he should be, well, which he never does, but in these two that we're talking about, these circumstances, you you know, we will never know, but you wouldn't be able to convince me that it wasn't about I'm gonna show them, because otherwise it makes no kind of sense. To what you were saying, that was IKF's ball, and Hicks knows that as a center fielder.
Yeah.
He knows that. He knows that that was IKF's ball, and it doesn't really matter if IKF didn't call it, which is one of the things, being suppositioned out there, because it's a known, it's a given, it's the understanding of the game. And for him to do what he did, they're so lucky. Hicks is so lucky. He caught the ball, but he's also catching hell because he caught the ball. That could have been a disaster and cost even more runs than we lost by.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, could you imagine if he had collided with Volpe and Volpe, had it like a twisted ankle, or they, something would have gone wrong? Oh, he would have better off just never even getting back on a plane because you can't go back to the Bronx after that.
no,
You
no,
know, and scary enough, IKF has been a very good outfielder.
he really has. I have so much crody. I have so many words to take back since we got him, and I feel like I'm talking like Ryan Rocco right now because of the way I just said that. But to try to take those words back, um, he's a utility guy, and that was spoken about from the beginning. But we were so focused on the stopgap thing, and but now look what we're reaping the benefits of because of the situation we're in. I don't want to see him go anymore. And I never thought, that's why I never say never. I never thought those words would come out of my mouth.
No, because we all know he's not the long term solution. He's not going to win the center field job. Okay, but you have to at least give the guy credit. He was thrown into a situation where he just worked. He's been kind of getting better game by game, and
Yeah,
at least like I said, you have to give him credit for that because he's putting the work in, not to embarrass himself or cost the team anything. And he's like, look, I got brought back on my option for the 6 million. I'm gonna do what I can to give them their money's worth. Whether I'm comfortable out there or not, I'm not gonna let it show. Because he actually, he's made some good plays where he catches the ball and he's gotten it back into the infield real quick. The whole, even yesterday, he made a great catch and got it back into the infield quick enough to hold players to singles rather than try to stretch it to a double. So yeah, IKF is at least putting the effort in.
yeah, and
If only Hicks would do that.
let's not forget that IKF pitched a good half inning.
Yeah.
Um, and really, what we haven't seen him in yet is what, catcher. We haven't seen him in yet, right? But apparently he could do that too. So, I'm calling an embargo on IKF hate. Um, but this Hicks thing, and for him to come up to bat and not produce, and in the clubhouse he's saying, I have to produce. Well, thank you, Captain Obvious. It's just they need to, they're the eaters of contracts. Come on. How many names could we put out for reference there? Just let him, just DFA him already.
Yeah.
He needs to be gone. Um, and then What we feel about Brito last night?
He's your prototypical 5 spot starter, fifth starter. You know, he's trying to get acclimated to the game, and I'm learning it that way because when you're a rookie, it's one thing when you're playing at home. You're home. You're comfortable. You're familiar. When you're out on the road for the first time in your career, every couple of days is something different. Okay, so you have to get used to how the ballpark. And what you're seeing with Brito is the fact that he's going to keep you in the game. He's not going to be, he doesn't have ace material. You know, he may develop that. That's
Yeah,
still to
yeah,
be unknown. That's unknown. But Brito, yeah, he deserved a better fate. All right. And when they could have gone one more inning with him. You know, we can't. I don't want to. I don't want to criticize the pitches because the offense is what's costing us games.
right,
It didn't matter if he gave up 1 run, 4 runs, or 9 runs.
right,
When you can't push across scoring, then what's the point of having being able to say you know I can't believe you made one mistake, gave up a 2 run homer. Oh, there's the game. No, that wasn't the game.
right.
It felt like it because our offense sucks.
That's 100% correct. And um, Curry and Lorenz mentioned, and rightly so, that in the post game, that if nothing else, it was a marked improvement from his prior outing,
Yeah,
which was a total tank show. So, yeah, I agree. I think that the longer we don't have the depth in the rotation, that the more we'll be seeing of Brito. And I was actually pleased. Maybe it was just because it was in relative memory to the other, but yeah, I think you're right. I think that he's going to be reliable, and he's so young. Who knows? But and for Train, you're right. His start was wasted because the bats were done before the first pitch. There was just zero zilch coming
yeah.
from the
Once you got past LeMahieu in the lineup, it was smooth sailing.
yeah, that's right. And we didn't have Rizzo doing anything. Um, so what? He's not gonna get revved and ready when his bestie is out of the lineup. I don't think that was it. I'm just being snarky, but um, we needed him to step up even more in an amped way with Judge being out. So and by the way, I tell me if I'm wrong, Tats, crickets on Stanton and his return.
Yeah, there's been no updates at all.
Yeah,
Nothing.
I have not heard a thing, and so I'm gonna leave a big question mark there. And what does that mean? Um, and so flash forwarding. Oh, actually, before we do, I have another topic to chat about. Everybody probably remembers, if you were watching the game, I believe it was Friday night, when Boone went over to Cole for a discussion um, during when the Rangers were at bat. It was quite an extended discussion, and everyone's sort of wondering what that was about, because it was a little unusual to see that during an inning. And so they last night they had Cole on
The broadcast, yeah.
yeah, on the broadcast during the game. And so apparently, Cole is really being relied on for, here's what I'm seeing, here's what I think should happen. And it seemed not even just about pitching, what he's seeing in terms of how we're, what's going on in the field. So find it interesting that that it's sort of like we know football has multiple captains. It seems like he has that captain kind of ear from with Boone, And I just thought that was an interesting thing to observe and then hear him confirm yesterday.
Yeah, it's we saw it last year with him, and we had made the joke on our show with Robin Donald that Boone was that Derek Cole was the unnamed manager because he was the one that was walking around interacting with the players, talking with the pitching staff, working with them, trying to give them guidance when it called for it. And I think that's carrying into this year where Cole is kind of saying, look, this is what I know you're the boss, but this is what I recommend.
Right. Yeah, and you love to see it. And I really, see so many different things about Cole that I attribute it completely to the haircut. I think he should never have hair below the ears again, because he's more talkative, more relatable, more candid, more engaging, and yeah, the leadership has always been there. You're absolutely right, but to me, more at the front, where we can actually see it rather than hearing about it. Um, but FJ's bringing up the next thing I wanted to say about Cole, actually. So the face heard round the world. And so, and there's debate going on about this because every podcast I listened to this week mentioned it in some way. Half seem to feel like, yeah, that's not a good look for a team. You're supposed to keep your, you know, proverbial game face on. And the other half is saying, you know what? He's right. That was a human reaction and it was correct.
Like
Um,
even Schmidt got mad at a play, and visualize his frustration, and let it come out a little bit. And John and Susan was saying, Susan had made the statement like, you don't do that yet. And I like how she threw in the yet. Because it's one
mm,
thing if Cole does it, but Schmidt, it's not like you're on Garrett Cole's level
right.
and his resume. And that was, not just a look. I mean, Schmidt looked physically pissed off about it.
Yeah, and it's like, hello, pot. This is kettle. You're black too. Like, you can't do this because you are not perfect.
Yep. Yeah.
And
Do we
yeah,
want to go over the lineup before
do
you
you
start
have
getting
it?
towards the end of the program?
Do you have it
It's
for
out.
for
If
the
you
one
actually want
game that we have a chance to still
to,
win?
and it's different. It's a
Oh,
different.
oh boy, different
No,
is usually.
we'll see. Well,
Get ready,
so
chat.
leading off is Volpe at short. Batting second is Peraza at third. Batting third, Rizzo is the DH. LeMayu is cleaning up at first. Torres batting fifth in second base. Cabrera is in right field batting sixth. We got IKF in center field. Higgy's behind the plate today. And Hicks is in left field.
All right. So the good news from me is that I've seen worse. Certainly seen better, but for all the reasons we just discussed, I didn't expect better. Um, and I think we already knew that well, so it's interesting that they're choosing to keep Hicks instead of recalling Franchi Cordero, which Tats, you and I were chatting about before we came on. Um, that's sort of like you know throw it up in the air and pick right now because
Yeah.
Cordero, I can't even call him like a flash in the pan anymore. I,
Well,
I think it was
yeah,
a mirage.
he's not an option anymore. So
No.
he was option down.
So the two players that needs just to be out entirely, it was a choice between those two.
Yeah. It should always, the number one answer should always be Hicks. Whenever we need to make a roster spot. Um, and you know what, Ella, you called it. You called. And Peraza has played a phenomenal third base. He's got the arm for it. And I think that's attributed to his work at shortstop. So you're already familiar with that side of the field. You just kind of moved over a little bit. Um,
Yeah,
so it's I think Peraza is going to be our third baseman. I think they're going to figure it out.
they're going to have to figure it out, and that is Donaldson, which is for another day. Wish it could have been for another lifetime. Um, and the thing hanging in the balance is DJ. And are we going to really make him the DH so that we can make Peraza, be the one at third all the time? Because if you want DJ to play and you're not resting Rizzo, then what happens to DJ other than DHing? And when then Stanton comes back, which we know is where he usually sits, so there's all those chess pieces we've been talking about all season that come into play.
Yeah, there's. I just hope that it's one of those where you kind of once everybody comes back and they're healthy and they're in the positions where they're supposed to be, that's where everything just starts to click. And if we can go on a run like the Rays on, and we can start matching them, uh, that's the only thing that's going to save our season right now.
That's right. That's right. And as far as this game goes, I mean, the series is already in the tank. But we have Nestor on the bump, and I'm just hoping we see the nastiest version of him that we could possibly see, and get out with at least a win, um, so that it's not a total embarrassment, just mostly embarrassing. It'll still
Yeah.
be a total embarrassment.
You know, but I like with the lineup, behind behind Nesta, is they are kind of trying to spread it out a little bit and not have the lineup so top heavy. That might be the only thing that helps us today. I'm not going to say it's going to save us, but it might help us.
I'll take any help. I'll take
At
Obi
this
Wan
point, try anything.
intervening.
You know,
What?
at this point, try anything.
Try anything, like I just said. Let Obi Wan Kenobi intervene at this point. Um, we need all the hope and help we could get. Um, I don't want to wrap up until we do our trivia question of the week, because I know people would be very sad if they didn't hear and see and get to think. So let me try to make this a little bigger while we're looking at it together. Um, okay,
There we go.
here we go. So, um, and this is from our friend Spencer, as always. Um, and he wants to remind us, because he's previously reminded us that it's the 25th year anniversary of the 1998 team that won the World Series. That dream team that, we want to have that dream again. After the regular season, the first challenge to that quest was a matchup against the Texas Rangers in the ALDS. The games were close, but despite future captain Derek Jeter and Yankee hero Bernie Williams combining for an anemic 1 for 21, the Yankees swept the Rangers anyway. Before they left Texas to face the defending AL champion Indians, oh boy, I remember that. The last pitcher they stepped up against in game 3 was this ex Yankee, who only 2 years earlier helped the Yankees win the 1996 title. Who was that pitcher?
That's a good one.
Spencer brings the goods.
Yeah, he's good.
Who was that pitcher? So it boils down to that game 3 with the Cleveland, they were the Indians at the time. Who was the ex Yankee pitcher who 2 years earlier helped the Yankees win the 96 title? and we'll leave you to mull with that. We're looking at your answers in the chat. Um, okay, I see Dwight Gooden as one of the answers from FJ. So everyone on the chat, mull it over, comment after the show, and let us know what you think. Those of you that are watching after, please let us know on at Hit the Upper Deck on Twitter. Let us know your answer to that. And Tats, I want to thank you, dear uncle of uncles, for joining me today. We both miss Chris, who will be back next week, and we want to thank our friends in the chat. You're like a upper deck family at this point. We love having spending part of our Sundays with you, and for everyone, you'll always have a seat on the upper deck every Sunday with us. Don't forget to tell your friends to like us, see us, subscribe to us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and all the socials. And please, for the love of all that is good, let's go Yankees!